So why do large language models hallucinate? Hallucination is a term for producing responses that are not factual. And a good example is I ask it, what's a good academic reference for the lexical hypothesis of personality? And it tells me, oh, a good reference is the lexical approach to personality, a historical review of trait taxonomic research by Whittaker, published in 2013. So I go off and look for that paper, and there is a paper by that name, but that paper was authored by other authors, John and Angleitner and Ostendorf, and it was published in 1988 in a different journal. So it has, I guess, you could argue, or some people say it lies or it made this up. So why do large language models hallucinate? Because that seems to not be perfectly clear to people who use them. And I just told you why. Because every call to the model produces a different stochastic response. Stochastic in this case, you could translate as random. Produces a different random response associated with the input. And that's also why it seems so confusing. The response is chosen at random, and it might be very related to the correct response, and so it seems maybe a little slick in how it's doing it. But that's just how these models work, and that makes me think that there are two kinds of prompts. Maybe it's a dichotomy. Maybe they're two poles of a continuum. But there are responses. I'm sorry, there are prompts where the response needs to be associated with the prompt, and these models can do amazing work, like write an email requesting permission to use an exam's items in artificial intelligence research to improve the server's platform features. The only way that the model can get that wrong is by not writing an email, having it not be on topic, or just writing it really badly. But if the output is associated with this prompt, it will be a good output. There isn't any specific correct way to write that email. But I could also ask it, what's the first psychometrics textbook? That's my favorite factual prompt. And that requires a very specific response. And if it gets it wrong, then it might be wrong. So here is the email, which I don't have time to let you read, but I think this is a really good email. It is on point. It is well written. It goes a little bit into some details that it inferred. Like, it infers a lot of details, and many of them are right, some of them aren't. This is a really good email. Maybe not perfect, but it's a really good email. Really good response. This is what I get when I ask it about the first psychometrics textbook. And just to be perverse, the first time it nailed it. I do believe that an introduction to the theory of mental and social measurements by Ed Thorndike in 1904 is the correct answer. And that's the first answer it gave. But then I deleted that answer and asked it again. And the next two times it tells me that it's James McKean Cattell, that he published some book called Psychological Testing or Psychological Measurement in 1890. And then the last one is this German work attributed to Wundt in 1880. All of these, it might not be apparent, all of these are related to the truth. Cattell was Thorndike's advisor. So they worked together. They're associated with each other. And Cattell did a lot of really interesting things, but I don't think he ever published a textbook. And he got his dissertation in Germany. His German dissertation is titled something like Psychometrical Investigations, which is very similar to this fourth one. So all of these have an element of truth to them, but one of them is actually factually correct, and the other ones are just correlated to the truth. And that's characteristic of how it responds to a prompt that requires a factual response.